Hello, welcome to Giggles Gratitude. I am Dina.
Hey everybody, I'm Diana.
We're so happy you're with us today. Whether you're listening on a Sunday or during the week, we like to provide a little, encouragement, inspiration, share our thoughts, and just kind of a nice laid back, easy Sunday show is how I like to think about it.
I think they wrote a song about that, didn't they?
Easy like Sunday. Oh, we got to pay Lionel if we sing it, but yeah, we're thinking of the same song. Hey, do you watch American Idol at all?
Every once in a while.
Yeah, I haven't watched it in years, and they've changed the judges so much.
Yes.
And then Katy Perry left because she was going on tour, and I never watched the show with Lionel, Luke, and Katy.
No, I don't think I did that.
I don't know what their dynamic was like, but when I heard Carrie Underwood was going to replace Katy,
Yeah.
I was like, I'm in.
I'm in. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I am in. I mean, who knows more about American Idol than Carrie Underwood? Maybe Kelly Clarkson, but
Right.
But she's gone through that experience, so she knows what those contestants are feeling and thinking.
That's fantastic.
What they're going to go through.
Be a great mentor.
Yeah, and she is gorgeous.
Oh, drop dead.
Amazing. And very talented. And
We'd hate her if we didn't like her so much.
I know. I hate love her so much. I want to wear her skin.
But she does. She seems like a really cool, just person.
Yeah.
I think that it would be fun to just meet her, and I think she would just be like you and me in real.
She does seem real, and she loves the Lord, and is not ashamed to say it.
That's correct.
That's very rare in that industry.
That's right. Yes.
So I just thought I'm going to support her and start watching it this year. And it's not like it used to be where you had your few that you were like, oh, that was a terrible note, and you'd cringe and say, come on, you can get better. It's like they're all excellent.
They're all excellent.
Yeah. So when one goes home, it makes for an entertaining show, but when one goes home, you're like, oh, I can't believe they're going home, but somebody has to.
But I feel like their exposure on that particular episode they were on is going to get them probably some phone calls. And probably seen in front of somebody, that can maybe take their career to the next level.
Absolutely. Can't be a bad thing.
No.
I'm a fan of Jamal, who is kind of the old school 60s soul music, the beach music, the Marvin Gaye kind of sound. That I love that song.
I'll have to watch it. I've not watched
definitely.
this.
If any of them that are left right now win, they're like down to 7. It's great. If
yes.
any of them win, and I think Carrie's doing a good job.
Okay,
it's a good dynamic.
You've started me wanting to watch that now.
I'll talk to you. How did I get on that subject?
I have no idea. I just flow with you. Whatever you say.
There was a point to what I was saying. Because we were talking about Lionel Richie, Easy Like Sunday Morning, made me think of him. So
yes.
Yeah. He's changed a lot. His face is different.
His face is different.
Yeah, okay. If he's happy, we're happy with him. Diana, I have had this, and I think I told you this, I have had this phenomenon happening to me lately where I'm dizzy. I have vertigo. It hits me out of the blue, and then it'll just go away as quickly as it came on. And I don't know, I've never had that problem before, but I've had to lay on the floor, suddenly lay down because I felt like the room was going round and round. And then I'll just lay there with my eyes closed because I get to the point of nausea. I'm so dizzy, like I've been on a ride.
Yes.
Have you had that?
I have Meniere's disease. So I have that every day. Yes.
Oh my gosh. What is that?
So that's it's in your inner ear. And so you have an unequalness, and it, like you say, on a ride, or you turn around too quickly, or that kind of thing. You really do get that motion sick, nauseated, to the point where there are times I've had to just drop to the floor. You may need to be checked out for that, dear.
What do you do for it?
Well, I try to cut back there's no cure.
Okay.
So I try to cut back my I know, right? It's fantastic. In order to help, not have the imbalance. Salt has a lot to do with it.
Too much or too little?
Well, I mean, everybody's body's different and based on the amount of water. But if you take in too much salt, you can cause more swelling. And so that's what creates the imbalance in your inner ear. And you feel that swishy in your head.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you have an ocean in your head.
Yeah. So meclizine is the medication of choice. It's like Dramamine.
Okay, you had mentioned to me before that you had to take one, and I didn't know what it was for.
I have to take one every morning.
Do you? So you
Mm-hmm.
wake up with like an ocean's going
Mm-hmm.
back and forth. You have an aquarium in your head.
I do, and it can be
It
debilitating.
is. It's
And there
awful.
are times where, obviously, if you're driving, like I
Yeah.
feel almost an aura before I get dizzy.
So I got to pull over here.
I feel my body heating up, and I almost feel like I'm gonna sneeze, but it's not a sneeze, so I know there's something going on in there.
Oh,
And so yes, I have an aura, but there's times like you said, just all of a sudden out of the blue, you get dizzy.
yeah.
So you need to have that checked out.
I do. I do. It's occurring to me now, and I don't. I'm not. I love this product, so I'm not against the product, and I'm just spitballing here and see what you think. I've started using that. I won't even say the brand, but it's the hydration powder that you put in your water to get you super hydrated, which
Yeah,
has sugar and salt and
gotcha,
powder form.
gotcha.
And I thought, well, I need to be hydrated. I know I do. And
Right.
but I've been doing it like every time I drink water, I pour that. You think maybe I'm over?
Have you noticed a correlation between when you do those packets and then you experience the
I've just
dizziness?
I've just started like the last few months doing that ritualistically
Uh
every
huh.
morning, putting that in my water instead of just drinking plain water. And I've
Sure.
never done that before. And
Sure.
now I'm saying I'm dizzy, and I've never been dizzy before. So maybe I should cut back and see if
Perhaps, yeah.
that helps. Maybe I'm
Maybe
just too
maybe
much
your
of a good thing.
electrolytes. Yeah, too much of a good thing. Your
Interesting.
electrolytes
Oh,
are maybe a little bit too caustic on your system and
yeah.
caused out.
Okay, well, I just had a revelation. But there is another theory that's a crazy theory because I was just going through Instagram and I saw a thing. Let me see if I can find it here. But it's a conspiracy theory that it's a thing called smart dust. And when there's a conspiracy theory in quotes,
Right?
they are putting smart dust into the sky by
Okay.
various means.
Okay.
It's attaching to pollen.
Oh Lord.
And
Got plenty of that.
I know, we have tons of pollen where we are. And you're getting it into your system and it's absorbing in your body and it's actually little microchips. Now I'm just throwing this out here. I'm not saying I believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they quote can control how you feel because you've got these little microchips and they're teeny teeny and microscopic obviously. And
Very interesting.
yeah, and that one day they'll be able to use radar or whatever to make you. Let's say you were a criminal, you committed a crime, and prisons are overcrowded. They do a certain radar on you where you're debilitated. You're like will not
Understand.
leave your house. You're
Right.
down.
Right.
Which I mean that could be a good thing to drop a criminal in a second.
True.
But it's frightening that we all have
That potential.
smart dust. And again, I'm not saying I believe this. I'm just saying it was so weird. I was feeling that way, and then I read this.
Really, nothing surprises me anymore. Our technology has taken us to, places, and I still feel like there's much more technology to be discovered. But goodness gracious, there are some crazy minds out there that are very smart and have the capability. And I don't know if that's happening yet, but I can see that happening maybe one day in the future.
Yeah, I mean, if someone has that thought, someone will make it happen. That's what I've always believed. If you see something in a movie years ago about
Right.
the future, oh, somebody thought of that. So
Because I watch movies and I understand who thinks of this? What medication are they taking in order to enable them to be aware on this level where they make movies about things that you and I would never think of.
I know. And then once it's imagined,
Right?
somebody says, "Ooh, here's how you do that."
Here's how you do that.
And it just into the universe.
Mm-hmm.
It begins, and it can't be stopped once that thought process. And that can be used for good. You can put something into the air and
That's right.
pray about it, and
An inertia for good or an inertia for bad.
exactly. Well, this is from Into Thin Air on Instagram. the number 2 thin air, and there's a lot of conspiracy theories on here, but it just popped up randomly on my For You page as I was
Okay.
scrolling through, and it says breaking reports from many in the southeast, which happens to be where we're located,
Right?
Once again, residents are reporting feeling sick and dizzy at the same time. We see a radar anomaly. So this guy's watching a radar on the map, radar for different things, and then people are saying, I feel so dizzy. So is it a coincidence? This has taken place on multiple occasions now this past winter alone, where residents of specific states are reporting feeling weirdly dizzy, sick, and have blurry vision. In a seeming giant coincidence, quote, this tends to happen when the NEXRAD radar, NEXRAD radar system is showing these anomalies that they claim are caused by birds and bugs and sometimes dust. So, I don't know. It's just kind of a little crazy thing I'm throwing out there. Again, I just thought it was coincidence that I felt dizzy. Of course, I think your phone's listening to you too. And I'm telling my mom, I'm so dizzy. And then dizzy stuff comes up on my phone. They are doing that too.
They are.
We want to be your escape from all this paranoia and craziness. So I shouldn't even have brought it up, but I've just never had this before. So.
Well, no, you should bring it up. That's why we're here to talk about it. But at the same time, if that's happening, I have no control over that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm learning to put my focus and my energy on things that I can change and dealing with things like your symptoms or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I love learning about that, but that is something that I have no control over, so they can throw all that out there if they want to.
It kind of falls into that category of those are worldly things.
Yeah.
And we are not looking toward the world.
Right.
It's
correct.
It's the godly things that we're looking for, and things are going to be crazy. The Bible tells us that they're going to get crazy.
Crazier.
Yeah. So you have to be grounded in your faith and know that the world is not the final destiny. It's not, really shouldn't be your concern.
Correct.
But those are kind of fun conspiracy theories.
But it's also hard as humans. We experience pain and happiness and all those ends of the spectrum. And it's nice to know that, especially with things that are going on in the world, that this isn't our last.
Exactly. For people
gig.
who believe that, I don't know how they get out of bed. Exactly. Not our last gig. What do you hope for? When you see the world is really moving so fast and technology's moving so fast and you don't know who to trust, who to believe.
Right.
It's what they're saying on television, true.
Even the news.
Yeah, you can't trust the news anymore, regardless of what side politically you're on. They're both trying to manipulate you.
Correct.
Make you afraid of the other side.
Right.
So it's when you don't have God to ground you and to think, I'm cool. It's all good.
Because
what do you do?
Walking the Christian life, knowing God is still hard, but without God, I can't imagine the hopelessness.
Right.
And again, how they're able to get up every day.
Mm-hmm. And you can say those things are out of your control, so you feel out of control, but no one is in control. It's just what is controlling you, and God is our
and what you
He's
allow,
our pilot.
what you allow to control you.
Yeah. So we know we are not enough. People always say you're enough. We are not enough without God, we are not in control of our
That's right.
life. So
Amen.
God's got it.
Well said.
God's got it.
He got this.
That's right. That's right.
They can drop whatever they want to
right.
into the air.
Yeah, exactly. We're good. We're good. I'll just lay on the bathroom floor. Hugging the toilet.
Why don't you just call me? Hey, I'm having a dizzy spell. Yeah, me too. Take your meclizine.
I do need to look into that.
No, seriously. Every morning they have the sublingual tablets. It's 25 milligrams. And it really helps me function.
So you put it under your tongue? Is that what you mean?
That's
Okay.
sublingual.
I do my B12 that way. So.
Correct. Yeah. It's just a different, more... As opposed to going into your stomach, it's more readily absorbed.
I gotcha. I'll give that a try. And I think I'll cut back on those hydration things.
I agree.
I think anything would be too much of a good thing.
Too.
Okay.
Unless it's time with you.
Aw. I feel the same way. Okay, I had a little giggle this week. This is Giggles Gratitude. And
Okay.
sometimes we have giggles, sometimes we don't. But I wish having a personal shopper do my grocery shopping because it's hard for me to leave the house in my current situation.
Yeah.
And as a caregiver, and sometimes they'll, you put your list online and then they'll text you and say, they don't have the substitutions. That's what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
So she was texting me. My shopper was texting me, and I got to bring this up. And I was texting with my sister at the same time. You know, texting two different people at the same time can be dangerous.
Can be,
Yeah,
absolutely.
but you should never say something about someone that you wouldn't say to their face.
Absolutely.
Which I do sometimes. But anyway, she said, the store does not have your low-fat cottage cheese. Would you like a replacement? In the meantime, I'm talking to my sister about the Karen Reed case, murder case. I don't know if you've been following. Do you follow Court TV or Crime or anything at all? I didn't think you did. Court TV, there's a big case, the Karen Reed case, and I won't get too into it. It was just that they were both drinking. She was driving. They went to a party at somebody else's house. She didn't really want to go in. She said, you go in and see if we'd never been to this house before. Do you really think we're invited or did our friend invite our friend? Anyway, she wasn't comfortable going in this house because she didn't know the people. So she said, you go in, make sure everything's cool. You come back and just wave me in and all. Otherwise, just come back. There was a snowstorm coming. It was in Boston. And then she got mad and left. She said he never came back out. And she got mad sitting out there waiting to, he's gone in there partying and forgot I'm even out here. Because they're both drinking, which they shouldn't have been drinking and driving, either one of them. So she goes home and he never comes home. So she starts calling his phone saying, where are you? You drunk? Or, she's calling him everything in the world. So anyway, it turns out, and then she started thinking, could I have hit him as I was backing out? Could he have been behind the car? Now, why she thought that, I don't know. But anyway, everybody's taking sides on this. She says he never came home. He must have gotten in a fight at the party. They say he never came into the house. You guys never came in the house. And you drove off in a huff. Anyway, they found his body out in the front yard. The blizzard came and the snow covered him so they couldn't see him, and he died.
Oh, my God.
Injuries, blunt force injuries. The police say she hit him, backed out real fast and hit him, and maybe doesn't know it, or maybe knew it and just was mad and left him, and then he got covered in snow. The people in the house say he never came in the house. She says he went in that door, so he must have gotten in a drunken brawl, and they kicked him out and hit. They didn't realize how bad they had beat him up, and he fell out in the yard and died. So here we are. She's being charged with murder. She said. I know, it's crazy. So anyway, me and my sister are like watching it, texting each other. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? So this poor woman shopping for me, back to the story, says, they don't have the low-fat cottage cheese. Would you like a replacement? And I say, well, their theory is he went in and got into a fight with his friends and got attacked by the dog, and they threw him out and into the snow to die. And they were all in on it. So I'm looking down thinking, oops. So crap, she's going to think I'm plotting a murder. I'm involved in
crazy person. Have the police there when you go to pick up your groceries.
So she says nothing, and I say, oops. Sorry, I meant to send that to my sister. And she said, I was confused.
So did you get your low-fat yogurt?
I said, just forget the cottage cheese. No. Was it yogurt or cottage cheese? Yeah, it was cottage cheese.
Cottage cheese.
Oh, my goodness. So, and I have done that before where I've actually hurt someone's feelings, where I'm like, I'm worried about Beth or whatever, and, have you heard from her? I'm kind of concerned about blah, blah, blah. And I realize I'm texting it to Beth.
Too bad.
I mean, how do you get out of something like that?
Well, you don't.
You don't.
You just own it.
Just say kind things.
Just own it.
And I did. I just said, look, I am worried about you. I didn't want to hurt your feelings, but,
Yeah. I mean, own it.
Yeah, I'm talking to somebody about you. But it's out of concern. But yeah, that can get tricky. Okay, I did see a really cool thing. It's called a third place, which I had never heard that expression, a third place. This is from genuinely.healthy on Instagram. It says, back in the 1900s, our grandparents had a third place. Not home, not work, but that in-between spot where life breathed a little easier. A barbershop, a local cafe, the church steps, a garden bench, a park, a book club, a bridge table. No screens, no agenda, just regular faces and slow conversations. That's where stories were told, grief was softened, relationships mended, loneliness eased. Today we replaced it with doom scrolling on our phones in silence, reading about smart desks.
Right?
Maybe we don't need more self-help books. Maybe we just really need that third place again.
Oh, I love that.
Isn't that good? What would be our third place, you think? Like maybe lunch with our friends, or
Um,
I mean, it kind of needs to be that static place that you can just show up at, and you know that that's there. Like they say, like the barbershop for men. I'm trying to think what my mom and dad did. My dad would go down to a museum, a local museum, with the curators, just sitting there all day in this little museum, and my dad would go down there and just sit with him. And he loved being surrounded by all the old artifacts and the
yeah,
things.
we had a little pharmacy that had the old Coca-Cola um, floats.
Oh gosh, I like those. Where they actually have the syrup in the, then they pull
Yes.
everything down, make the malt.
So we went in once a week, me and my mom and dad, and we would go get one and just sit there. They had the little diner
Yeah.
with the little table and those little round chairs,
Yeah.
kind of like in the 50s.
I bet you spun around. I bet you held the counter
Yeah,
and spun
I
yourself.
did. I would have loved to have lived back in the Mayberry, times like Andy and Opie and Aunt
does-
B.
Seems like a
Barney.
good one. Yeah.
That's kind of my speed.
Yeah. Yeah, it does sound good to me too.
It
You do.
does.
That is what I do. I put when I'm stressed or like I've done everything I need to do that day and I think I'm going to plop down on the couch. I grab my phone.
Right, and
just
really
scroll,
your
scroll,
phone
scroll.
isolates you.
That's what they're saying. Yeah, because you're not. I might say, "Hey, mom, think about what about this?" But it'd be better if I just sat down and looked my mom in the eye and said,
Well,
"Tell me something about."
we went to dinner the other day, and there was like a group, and literally you could just tell by their reactions. There were two girls, young girls, sitting on the end that had their hand, on their phone, texting, and they were texting each other
At the table.
at the table, and they were sitting right across from each other.
That's crazy.
Yes, and I'm like, oh my goodness.
Do you think people are going to forget how to talk one day eventually?
Well, I would hope so. That'd be nice. I think people talk too much, so I'm good with that.
Oh, they got to be talking to each other. So
I'm more the silent type.
Well, text does come in handy. We're kind of being hypocritical because
Sure it does, but not across the table.
that's true.
Yeah, I'm not sitting here texting you this podcast.
Think how quiet this podcast would be if we just texted each other. Here. Tick, 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 tick.
What do y'all think about that?
Oh, that's true. Anyway, I do agree with that. We always think the old times were the better times, but I feel like the mall was the place that, it was I was a little older when the malls were the big thing, but
Right?
our children or our maybe younger siblings would hang out at a mall. That would be,
Yes.
but you don't have that anymore, really.
No, you do
The
not.
malls are gone, so.
Also, there's a lot going that I miss.
Yeah.
So I think we need a third place. Let's work on that.
Yeah. So when your day is through and you thought, I'm not going to do anything else today, what is your go-to? Is it a book? Is it just being quiet out on your patio with Dan? Or is it...
Yeah, spending time out. I love the outdoors, and so we have a great home now where we
You
have a
do.
pool
Beautiful view.
and a fire pit and a little putting green
Yes.
and a hot
Your house
tub.
is so cool.
So we have the perfect place. So that's my third space.
Yeah. Your home is your
Yes.
first and your second.
Yes.
And your third.
And my third.
I don't blame you. It would be if that was my home too. Yeah, so something to think about what you do when they have that. What is your communal, interactive third place where you feel you're going to be welcome, you're going to be at peace, and you're
Yoga.
Yoga. Somebody did mention that. Yoga's a good spot.
So I used to be really into, obviously, every single day, made a trek to the gym. Got out of doing that, a few years ago with work, and so then got into yoga. So yeah, yoga's always very welcoming, and I always benefit from that.
That's great. That's great. So look for that, guys, listening, if you don't have one. That's an order.
That is nurse's order.
There's a priest, he's an Episcopalian priest on Instagram. I'm not Episcopalian. I do have some friends and family that are, and I have found that we differ on quite a few things. We all believe in God, which is the most important thing. Jesus is the Son of God, but just some doctrine things that we disagree on. But he is I find inspiration from him. And so when I share a quote, let's say I see something that really moves me on the internet and I don't research the person who said it, sometimes people may think, "Oh gosh, I didn't know you believed this." They look at their other posts. And
Correct.
I'm talking about this specific thing they said,
Right.
and they're inspiring. Whether I agree with, everybody has
Their
different
whole
ideas.
premise.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. And they may do or say something that I'd be like, but
Back up now.
yeah, I'm talking about the specific thing that I do share. So I did want to say that it just resonates with me. And this is in reference to, I'm going to play a little soundbite here. This is in reference to when Jesus was on the cross and he said, "God, why have you forsaken me?" And that's kind of where we stop that quote in our minds, at least for me. I remember Jesus said, "God, why have you forsaken me?" And I felt like he was feeling forsaken and hurting him. That kills me. But that's where we stop in our minds. That's the quote we remember. And sometimes non-believers will use that, I have experienced, to say, well, if God is your father and loves you so much, why would he forsake you? Or why would he put you in that position? And Jesus in that position, if that's his son, why would he do that to him? And this Joseph Yu kind of clears that up. And so we can listen to this, I think, and I'll certainly get your opinion. You may not agree with that. You can put that in your arsenal when somebody throws that out at you. That's what I love to have as an apologist arsenal, for when somebody says something, you say, well, this is what I believe, rather than, oh, they stumped me. I don't like to be stumped like that.
Correct.
Because then you miss that opportunity.
Sure.
You can find him at joseph.u, that's YOO, on Instagram.
Why does Jesus say, my God, why have you forsaken me on the cross? And that's a fair question, because at first glance, it sounds like despair and abandonment. But if you were in the crowd that day, and if you were an Israelite, you would have recognized that line instantly. It's the opening verse of Psalm 22. And in Jesus' time, people didn't reference Psalms by number like we do. They quoted the first line, and it was understood to mean the whole psalm. So when Jesus cries out those words, he's not just expressing anguish. He's pointing everyone there to the whole of Psalm 22. Yes, it starts with a feeling of forsakenness, but by the end it's filled with hope. God has not hidden his face. He has heard. The poor shall eat and be satisfied. Future generations will be told about the Lord. In other words, Jesus isn't saying, God gave up on me. He's saying, this hurts, but God is still here and this isn't the end. Even in his final breath, Jesus was preaching. Even on the cross, he was reminding us, hope still has the last word. So now you know.
Thoughts?
I like that. I like him.
So in other words, Jesus was not speaking to God. He was speaking to the crowd, saying the first line of Psalm 22, which is long. I read it, and people need to go read it. He was saying, this is what's happening here. I'm telling you to...
I interpret that different.
Okay, I'm interested to hear you say that.
I believe that when all of the sin of the world came upon Jesus on the cross, God is absent from sin. So everything that I have ever heard is that God at that moment had to turn his face from Jesus. And that's when Jesus' heart burst of taking on all the sins of the world. And it was just for probably a nanosecond. But I don't think he was talking to the crowd, because there's a lot of different interpretations, and where it says Abba, Father, so he's addressing God, not the people in the crowd. So yeah, I don't agree with that piece of it, but
That's interesting how the Bible, people can all have different interpretations of things.
yeah,
Which can be dangerous, but
translation-
it can also be good. But
And I feel like different translations can give you pieces of a perspective that, and then the Lord can solidify that in your heart and your spirit that you're on the right track.
yeah, I was reading the comments. This woman kind of sounds like you. She said it's crucial to understand that God did forsake him. He poured his wrath on him. The agony of Christ was not simply in his bodily wounds, which were indeed excruciating, but the mental and spiritual torment of being the object of God's wrath. This is a major reason that his death is different from any other excruciating torture experienced by a human in history. Mm-hmm. In Romans 8, it says that God condemned sins in his flesh. Our sin condemned in Christ's perfect flesh so that our sinful flesh no longer rules us.
Yes.
So he was doing that. Whereas this guy's saying, the Bible didn't have little numbers on it. It wasn't really a Bible at that point. So he said,
right.
Jesus is saying could barely speak, I'm sure. He's saying the first line to tell people, this is happening now, and this is what's happening. Read the Psalm 22. So, does it matter which it was?
No, it's just everybody's interpretation. And as long as you believe in the Lord and you're saved, mm-hmm. I think that's inconsequential.
Yeah, I kind of tend towards him because it's maybe easier for me to understand. Makes sense to me. So if the same person said to us, well, if your God's so great, why did he let bad things happen? Why didn't he save Jesus? Well, we know that couldn't happen that way. You would have an answer and I would have an answer that I think would be satisfying either way and would lead them towards
correct
God. He was not forsaken. So
right.
I thought that was an interesting
perspective.
Yeah. And I'll do one more thing here that I saw, and then do you have a little Diana's
I do.
Thing for us? Okay. Okay, this is about finding your purpose. People are always like, I don't know, I've got the job I want, I've got the spouse I want, I've got my kids, but I don't feel satisfied. I don't really have my purpose. I love God, but what is my purpose? So this was kind of addressing that in a unique way again. And again, this particular thing that this person said spoke to me. And this is actually from at the Rock San Diego. At the Rock San Diego on Instagram. You look at people that are billionaires and beautiful or handsome or whatever, and yet they're still not satisfied,
Correct. We don't find true satisfaction in worldly things. We're either striving to get them, or we get them, and then once we've got them, they don't have that allure or that power over us.
You're anymore. Like, this is still not enough. This wasn't it.
Well, let me explain it in a way that really helped me kind of understand this spiritually dead thing. So, a glove was made in the image of a hand, right?
Yeah.
The 5 fingers, so that a hand can fit inside the glove. And with the hand, the glove is useful. You can use it, and it has a purpose. But without the hand, the glove is lifeless.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Surprisingly, it does.
Okay, so track with me. In the same way, we were created in the image of God, right? So that God can live inside of us. And with God, we have purpose. We're filled with his power. We're filled with his strength. But without God, we're spiritually dead. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I think it does, surprisingly. So, you're saying I was made in the image of God, so that God can live inside of me and give me purpose.
Exactly, yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard somebody break it down like that before.
So I kind of like that analogy. I think that's another thing you could say to someone who's like, I don't know what my purpose is. Well, for you to find your purpose, God's got to be inside of you.
That's right.
And whatever you're doing then, if you're doing the will of God, that is your purpose. Maybe it's not a big grand thing that you're doing.
That's it. We all get sidetracked and think it's something that everybody needs to know, and it needs to be this balloons and, happy.
You need to be able to
party.
look at it and say, look at this.
Yes.
Look at this thing I did.
But it's every day. So I cut strawberries, for an example.
Okay.
And I put them in my little smoothie shake in the morning, and I take the little green, I'm not a farmer, so...
What you call it? Is that a root? A leaf?
Whatever.
The
little
stem. Stem.
And I save them, and I put them out for the deer to eat.
Oh, fun.
And like the ends of cucumbers and different stuff like that. So to them, that is as meaningful as,
You're that magical woman that this wonderful stuff
I
comes
am.
out.
I think they think I'm Eve.
Yeah, there you go. Pray to the strawberry fairy. She has all these magical things.
So it doesn't have to be a grand event to be something that makes a huge difference in an animal's life or in a person's life. And when you do things to get seen by others and to promote more yourself, you're taking away from your giving aspect. And then I don't think people get a whole lot out of that.
Yeah. Maybe at first.
You get more when you give.
Yeah.
And especially when you give from the heart. And when you give where nobody sees you. Only God sees you.
Yeah.
And my philosophy is always you can never outgive God.
Absolutely.
Never.
Well said. Well said. Yeah. So maybe you feel like you didn't fulfill your dreams and do this grand thing you imagined when you were a child or whatever, what you expected when you went to college, I'd be doing this. But if God is controlling your little glove fingers,
My little glove.
then you are fulfilling your purpose.
Absolutely.
That's the most important thing you can do.
I know in my spirit, 100% I was to be a nurse, to open doors to where I had the possibility of making a difference and helping someone. And each one along the way was not, moments of grandeur. There were times where things got tough when you commit to helping feed a community or, whatever it is that you're trying to do to make a difference. It a lot of times requires not only your commitment, but then maybe also some monetary, financial help with someone.
Mm-hmm.
That's also very credible, but it's the things that we do behind the scenes to not get those accolades and attention.
Right. Right. I agree. Someone has to do the small things for the world to go around,
I love doing the small things.
Well, I won't
every
say
day.
that what you're doing is very apparent and very grand and aspirational, but your little strawberries and the things, rather than throw them in the trash or down the garbage disposal.
Oh, my deer love me.
Well, and that's why when I went to your house one day, there was like 12 deer in your driveway.
Absolutely.
And they were like, "Are you the strawberry fairy?" And I'm like, "No."
Well, they probably thought because you have dark hair and I have dark hair, so you're just a little taller than me. They're like, "Yeah, she's grown a little bit."
So I was like, "I got nothing, guys." So they ran away.
So next time, bring them some strawberries
There you
or
go.
some fruit or whatever.
Yeah.
My husband is like, "Why do you do that?" And I'm like, "Well, the deer like it."
Yeah. Well, I think you got to understand, listeners, because some people say don't feed wild animals because they'll bring more and then they'll be comfortable around people and then they'll get shot. But Diana lives in almost like an animal sanctuary,
True.
very private, gated area where the deer are part of the
Plentiful.
community. I
Oh, my
mean, they're
goodness.
there every
Yes.
time you go. They're there, and they look at you like, "Hi,
Hi.
how's it
Yeah.
going?"
I passed I think 15 last night going home.
Yeah, but that is not a hunting area, so it's not like she's luring them in for the hunters.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No hunting
Yeah,
on
those are her
on
pets.
the-
You're like Snow White.
on that land. Well, it's, again, the animals need a safe place to live just like we do.
Yeah,
I understand.
they were there
the
first.
They were there first. We are
in your area.
infringing
Yeah,
on every area. You
Yeah.
know, when you think about it, we are infringing on, and they don't have areas to keep going to.
yeah. But I'm like you. You're about to say overpopulation. I had a conversation with my aunt about that the other day. It's like she said she saw a deer and she said, "I know they were here first, but they're eating our plants that we just planted."
Right.
And I said, "Well, like once
Didn't
again,
feed 'em.
That's true. That's true." I said I guess they were there first, but there is an overpopulation with the deer and they carry ticks and just, there is a reason why
That's right.
there is hunting and I support
there
it.
has to be a balance in everything.
True.
A balance through life.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, well, we'll end on that note. Even if you feel like your life is small and you haven't done what you dreamed you would, let God in your heart and it will happen the way it will unfold as it's supposed to be. Your glove will fill up.
I love that. Your glove will fill up.
Yeah, and your fingers will wiggle.
And your mouth will move.
Everything will work. All right, let's get out here so you can do a Diana's devotion. I love you, Diana. Thank you for joining me once again. Thank you guys for listening. Up next, Diana's devotion.
All right, so here's for our devotion. We're going to read God's Little Lessons on Life for Women by Honor Books. 8 requirements for contented living. Health, enough to make work a pleasure. Wealth, enough to support your needs. strength enough to battle with difficulties and overcome them, grace enough to confess your sin and put them behind you, patience enough to toil until some good is accomplished, faith enough to make real the things of God, hope enough to remove all anxious fear about the future, and charity enough to see some good in everyone. Look around you, be aware, be in the moment, and enjoy your day. We've enjoyed our time with you. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.